Avedon embarked on a mission to show the humble reality of how many Americans were living, which culminated in his series, The American West.
The 7 years you spent about the American West, photographing the American West and the characters out there, and we must have some of these here, I'm sure. Then that was different, though, because you chose them, and you almost chose them because they expressed some idea that you had rather than what they might express on their own.
Exactly. Now, so we have two things going. First of all, it was in the Reagan years.
Yeah.
Everything was wonderful, and I went out west.
Morning in America. Morning in America.
Absolutely, Morning in America. And I went out west to do this body of work because I knew that since I had never done the working man, I had done only the people I knew, power, entertainers, artists, fashion, that that my portrait of America would never be complete unless I attempted, at least. And I certainly didn't think I could succeed at all. I went out there. There was no John Wayne, except in the Marlborough as they worshipped. There were, the steel mills had folded, the farm, you know what happened to farming, you know what happened to the oil boom.
Right.
I went out, and those people in the book that are called drifters, they weren't drifting because it was fun. They were looking all over the West for the next job. And my heart was, you know, broken. Also, the sense of there's something about people who are not, I've been so used to people who are aware of the camera and had a great sense of self-image. I never realized the depth that I could go to with people who were thrilled to be photographed. It wasn't boring
you want to
for
photograph
them.
me, they would say, almost.
That's right. You want to photograph me, and also I'm looking so dirty, and then I would say, look, I don't want to photograph you in your Sunday best. You have those pictures. I want to show in my pictures what you look like when you're working, when you're in waiting on table, when you're on the road.
And what do you think they thought about?
Well, you can't generalize, but there were an enormous amount of there was an enormous amount of response from not an enormous, but many friends that were developed through that loved it, that came to the show in Fort Worth when it first opened. They were proud to be photographed. The little boy who turned his daughter upside down.
Yeah.
And, you know.
All right.
So it's very mixed. I'm so sure some didn't like them. This never happened. I created it without any idea of how I was going to photograph it or who I was going to photograph. I drew it after it came to me in a dream. I thought of it as the way a painter would think of what he wanted to paint. I put advertisements in the beekeeping journals, and I explained that I needed someone who would permit bees to be on their body.
So I can still remember going past and under the trees, all these packages of bees. And I said, oh my God, they're packaged bees. And Dr. Gary said, don't worry, everything's under control. Richard Avedon said, now remember, you can't move because any movement will be a blur. At which point my knees were starting to shake a little bit, and I said, well, how am I going to overcome that? And I just sort of locked my knees in, and hopefully I didn't move.
Dick was very, very good with people, and and he had a sense of himself as an artist. And so he worked for a whole year photographing people, and then he said to the miners, I'll be back next year and I'll show you what I've done. And so he went to a coal mine and on the side of a Quonset hut of a coal mine, where they would go in to shower after working on a shift. He had an exhibition, and it was very moving. We got there early. We had put the pictures up on the exterior wall of the Quonset hut, and when the miners came to work in the morning, they saw themselves from the year before, and they saw other miners from other mines that they may have known or may not have known. So it was quite interesting to see them, their reaction. And it was a wonderful thing. I mean, I think it was something, Dick didn't have to do it. It was something that he was interested in, to see the subject's reaction to his work. And what was very interesting was that the subjects and people who lived in the West knew much more about these portraits. Instinctively and just looking at them, they responded more positively than people from the art world, because people from the art world actually didn't like the pictures. Other photographers didn't like them. Curators didn't like them. Museums didn't like them. They thought, who does this fashion photographer think he is going out into the West? I was very surprised by the negative reaction of people to the pictures. I thought, do they not go into these same hardware stores, and do they not go to the county fairs